Yo, Paige, you say something?
I was talking to Glory, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, I had it muted, but I just popped back. I saw out of the corner of my eye, I saw your thing light up, so I just flipped over to the screen and
I,
I unmuted it, so I didn't hear
I saw
what
Arwin
you're
was here
talking about.
earlier. Just wondering what he was up to.
Oh yeah, we talked for hours, dude. It was awesome. Yeah, we had a in-depth talk. Looks like Witsit's streaming right now too on the um Blue Origin thing.
Yeah, that was live. It's over now, I think.
Yeah, dude, Arwen, it was awesome, man. I've talked with Arwen a bit here and there. Like we've had some combos where, there's like several of us, but that was the first time I've ever kind of talked. It was like him and I for a few hours there. I was like asking him a lot of questions and others were jumping in too, but yeah, it was anyways, had a really good conversation. Have you heard his idea of the square map, like the Mercator, the loops?
How do you get from one side to the other side?
It loops. You'd have to hear how he described it. He went in detail. I don't want to try to even steal man what he was saying fully because I also want to. I was trying to understand it fully myself too, but I was just kind of coming at it like an interview mode, just asking questions, wanting to hear his thoughts and all that. And I wasn't trying to be confrontational or trying to knock it down. I was just trying to listen. So, I mean, I was trying. I don't know if you've heard him explain it or not before. So, and I don't want to try to fully like steal man it because I only heard it. I know there was one other time that I heard him mentioning it on here, and I was like, oh, what was he talking about? But then I didn't catch it. So, basically, it would be like a planar square map, like the Mercator, with. I mean, I'll try to somewhat describe how I just the summation a little bit. Would be okay, so like I guess like a square type Mercator map with like the sky is like basically completely apparent and is unique to you. So each person is going to, depending on their position on Earth, was going to get those stars. He's not saying they're not physical. He doesn't think the stars are like they're not just like sonoluminescent light bulbs up there that are twinkling. He thinks it works in a completely different way than that. It's like more like a holographic, projection, as it were, like a holographic. I'm not saying he's saying all these words. Okay, I'm just trying to. He might have said holograph at one point, but I'm just trying to give my sort of general. And then, yeah, so the sky is like, something like that to where it always kind of moves with you. And then, so there doesn't have to be some like set ceiling with lights and all, but it's more like he was saying everything is in an angular position to you, in an apparent position, etc. And then I think for like the Pac-Manning thing, he was kind of describing like this is the harder part for me to understand exactly what he was saying, but something to the effect of like that this realm is like it's like a grid, and he was sort of saying something to the effect that it loops like a wormhole or like a tunnel or like a self-replicating loop, almost like I was thinking of like a toroidal field where in the middle it loops down and back up and around. But so he was saying it's like we're in like a tunnel in a sense, like a massive, and that's like the North Pole and the South Pole thing. And then if you were to go like west from South America, you would basically like he wasn't really saying that you would like Pac-Man necessarily. It was more like that the world keeps looping basically. Like if you were to go straight west, you would end up where you were, but not because you're on a ball, but because you're on a kind of a grid that he was saying has some looping. Which, like I said, I'm just trying to kind of give a little bit of what I remember him saying, but I'm not trying to like fully say how exactly he was describing it, but something to that effect. So I guess yeah, I mean if someone wanted to call it Pac-Manning, but some kind of an effect in which like when you get to the one side, like it just continues going and then you arrive at the other side, like a loop.
Yeah.
What's up, Isa?
Yeah. It's so funny, like
Well, dude, this was I was oh, good. Well, Arwen and I like talked for
like
hours earlier. We went deep on the. I was in the
oh,
group
was that
chat.
Arwen's idea?
Well, somewhat. I was trying to be tentative because I'm not trying to full blown steel man it. I am kind of trying to summarize though, like the way I understood what he was saying. Because like
It's just like it's so funny, like like I was just thinking in my head like just like the shit that like, let's say like I'm just gonna be completely neutral, but it's just hilarious, and it's just hitting me as really funny right now as I come in here and hear that. Is like the amount of excuses like flat Earth has made to not be a ball.
I am gonna give a laugh at that because I do hear what you're saying, like in general,
Oh
like just the
God, it's
spirit of that, or like the ridicule angle of that, of how
just it's
somebody will say
hilarious. Like,
that.
yo, Doug, I
It's what
gotta
Master
say,
Chill's about to say, so you got him covered.
oh, I got no, dude. I gotta say, like, I'm getting like, it sucks that like, you know what I mean. I'm gonna be as forthright, but it's like it is like the globe is growing on me, man. I don't know what the fuck to say, dude. It's really weird, dude. Like, I saw some footage. I saw
Wait,
a
you're going
guy I was
back.
chatting.
Wait, you're going back to the globe. You're
I mean,
considering it. You're considering it could actually be what the realm is.
yeah. I mean, I am. I've always considered it. You know what I mean? But I just have always just hated the Globers enough to just be like, no. Like, but at the same time, I've always considered the globe as like, cathexis. I've talked about this before. Cathexis shut down my hatred of the globe. You know what I mean? Like as a raw flat earther, Cathexis shut me down. He was like, yo, dude, you can't because it's a good model. It works. It answers all these questions. Like, you know what I mean? So I've always had a healthy respect for the globe. But I've always like I was kind of talking to this other guy earlier, and as much as I reluctantly hate to like, he showed me an interesting piece of footage, and it's so funny. It's just so funny because it's a picture. It's a quick caption of shots that I've never seen before personally of like a boat going into the distance of all of my gripes, and it's just interesting to hear, to come in. I'm kind of going through this whatever appreciation for the globe, and I was kind of like, I'm interested in the idea of like, okay, and, Gem was funny today too because I was like, let's say the Earth is a globe, the discussion then becomes, are we moving or are we not moving? And then like, Jem was like, oh, here we go again with just like you just won't accept. Like, it's just so funny. Like,
Yeah,
just
but we're
I'm just
not.
I
We're
guess
not. We're not moving though, dude. The globe's out. I mean, at least from my perspective, of course. But like, we're not in all that mode. We're not on a ball. We're not on a big ball in space. It's just not
well, hold on
what it
though.
is.
Like the idea of the Ptolemaic model, like you know what I mean. Like the idea of just that would be the evolution of the debate. Do you know what I mean? Like if flat earthers would be like, you know what, the maps are too much of a problem. You know what I mean? This kind of shit. And like, and then like if you were to go to the globe, then the next topic of discussion becomes movement, becomes stationary versus, moving, you know. It's just like that would be the evolution of the debate, you know. But
It doesn't. I mean, so I mean, what a geocentric stationary ball? I mean, that's got that. That's a. I guess somebody could. You think that's going to evolve to that?
I think that would be the evolution of it. Yeah, that would be the evolution because like, like take for instance, just the arguments of like the stillness, like the idea that you don't feel anything, like, you know what I mean? And like appreciating that, um, that like empiricist, or what's the right term? Like what you experience, um, uh, like, it's just, that's what opens up that next evolution of the discussion, you know, if the globe were accepted by flat earth, that would be the evolution of the debate. You know what I mean? But I always rely on, or not rely, but I am intrigued by the idea that we only perceive such a small sliver of the frequencies of experience. You know what I mean? Like even light, you know what I mean? We only perceive so much of it. We can only even detect so much of it. So it's like, it's kind of wild to make all these claims based off of such a small amount of information, you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that. I've thought about that a bit in terms of like even lately. Just
Well,
like
like just
how
even like
like even debating with these people, it's like, okay, like there's a part of me that's like, all right, I know I was born in a hospital. I grew up, you know, where I grew up. I've lived in a few cities I've lived in, you know, et cetera. Probably pretty average in a way of that. I mean, I grew up in Michigan, moved out to California, whatever, right? I've done some traveling. I've been to some places, but yeah, I haven't explored the whole earth. I haven't done, you know what I'm saying? I've done, so I'm just saying, but if you take everyone now, I know some people will say, oh, but I have experience and I have this, and that. They may not, but it's actually like when you kind of think about it, like we're all sort of in the same boat. Like I know some people are going to claim they've done, I mean, no surveyors are going to claim what they've done. I know there's going to be, so I know there's obviously there's expertise as it were claimed in certain fields. But at the same time, the question is, yeah, what, well, I mean, geodetic surveying is all calculations anyways. They're not even measuring curvature, but they're calculating it. So there's that. But anyways, I'm just saying, like, it's just kind of, I guess the gist of what I was saying is that when you're like debating with someone online, unless they have like, maybe if they do have some expertise in the field, I guess that's kind of an exception because that would have to be considered. But in general, if they're like a generally normal person that, you know what I mean, has done whatever research, whatever observations to whatever limited extent, and then they're here being like, this is how it is, and it's like, dude, you really know that's how it is? Or you kind of like just compiling stuff from various information and then just kind of repeating it, or do you really, really know? So anyways, I was just thinking of that when you said that.
no, I mean, it's like, in some sense, it's like, flat Earth has been just a big fuck you to the world. You know what I mean? It's like it's the most punk rock shit, or has been. You know, uh, in a lot of ways. But I also think like, these parties deserve a fuck you. You know what I mean, for what they've done.
Because it busts the spell. I mean, dude, whether, I mean, that the whole Gleason's like flat Earth thing that was kind of sold to people as like the little backup model that everyone clung to, and a lot of people got really zealous about it and thought that they'd cracked the code and this was it, and oh my gosh, and I'm not saying anything about what it is or isn't. I'm just saying that there were people that did that, and then the 24-hour sun thing, like we were talking about that earlier, did kind of shift that. So anyone that was like zealous who just jumped onto that model. But then it's like, all right, well, if it's not completely that flat Earth Gleason's thing, at least the way that's sold. I'm not saying that's not that layout. I'm just saying that like the with the sun doing exactly that, like that exact model, the way that was sold, and a lot of people jump to that. Then if it's not the globe, then okay, or sorry, no, I was gonna say if it's not that exact AE model with that sun path and the sky working that way in that exact fashion, and then it's the question of, okay, are you going to go back to a globe, or you or whoever, I'm just saying whoever, go back to a globe from there, or continue the path knowing that you don't have all the answers, but you do have what you do have, staying true to yourself and continuing the journey. I feel like this is like if you call it like a truther test or something at this point, like this is like a deep one, and like who's going to basically stay on the ship, as it were, because I really don't think it is a globe. And I understand people maybe wanting to go back to it, or it's too complicated, too much to take on, too many unanswered questions. I'm not saying you're thinking those things. I'm just saying in general, I could understand all that, but I do not think that's arriving to truth going to the globe, in my viewpoint. So,
Well, see, I don't also am of the opinion that just clinging to flat Earth, I mean, like clinging to like, like, or let's say like, some like I look at it's like the bell curve. You know what I mean? You've got like a self-righteous globe earther, and you've got a self-righteous flat earther on the end of the spectrum. You know what I mean? And like they're essentially the same person. You know, like you got one zealot for the globe and one zealot for flat Earth. Whereas like it's you're literally talking about this enormous thing that you live on. Like, I just think like it's somewhere in the middle, in the sense that like the globe can be appreciated as a model, and yet one can also like entertain flat Earth because the Earth presents itself as such. And I think there's like a paradox there that can never be married. You know what I mean? Like it's like we're never gonna solve that problem for 100% in my opinion. But that said, it doesn't. You know,
especially while avoiding concave Earth.
no doubt.
Let's go full concave.
At all costs, avoid fucking concave Earth. But because that involves a whole nother fucking. I mean, shoot, actually, that would have to be in the mix too. I mean, I always gave LSC his props to some extent, but it's like this idea of we still only perceive like such a small amount of like the whole, and it's really kind of like it's kind of like like the parable of like 5 blind people holding onto an elephant. You know that parable? Like the parable is like 5 blind people and they're all holding on to different parts of an elephant and they're trying to explain the elephant and what they're holding to the other parties. And
Yeah.
one guy's holding the ear and he says, "Oh, it's flat and it's this and it's that." And the other guy says, "No, it's long and it's skinny," because he's holding the trunk.
Yeah.
And the other guy, and the other guy's holding the tail.
No, we
And,
do. Arwijn and I were talking about this earlier. We definitely have like a very unique kind of limitation. Like we were talking about, like like a governor on an engine. Like you can have like a motor and you put a governor on it, and it like limits the carburetor how much it can open. So you can only go like 80% of full speed. Of of fully open. You can only go like 80% of the top speed or whatever, wherever you set it, 70, 80, 90. You can like govern the engine. And it's like we were talking about how like it's like our consciousness is like being governed, let's say, or there's like the subconscious or the unconscious. It's like the idea that we're like being governed or like limited. I don't mean like the government, but I'm just using that word we're being limited from the rest of all of consciousness. Yeah, like we're in a state in which it's sort of like I think of it like a faucet, and then you turn the faucet almost all the way off, but it's just dripping. If you were to turn it all the way on, it would be, I guess, like the rest of consciousness. But if it's just a little trickle, then yeah. So we are limited in that way. And even people that come in here like dead set confident on the globe, or even dead set on like, see, I think you could be dead set that there's no curvature and no motion, understandable from what we can do now. But if somebody's claiming like an exact map or how the sky works, I think that's similar to trying to claim it's a globe. And because I know that they can't know that it's a globe, in a way, meaning that I know that they don't have enough information other than the same stuff I've been given, which is not actually to me validating the globe. So I know that they really don't have anything else. That's why I'm always interested if someone wants to bring something new, like some real experience. But to debate with a lot of these guys, I'm like, okay, I already know that they don't have the tools or methods to even claim what they're claiming. They're just going off what others have claimed, ultimately. So it's like knowing that they don't have the whole picture to be able to make certain assertions that they're making, and then it's sort of like it renders their position to be kind of, in a way, somewhat invalid.
But then you can't necessarily like even like a broken clock's right twice a day kind of a thing. So it's always like it's you should pay attention, like you know what I mean, like regardless, and like so it's like today, for instance, I had a conversation with a cat over at Gems, and he put a piece of footage in. I've just never seen it, and it was just it's an interesting little clip of like a boat going over the curve of the earth, and I don't think I've ever seen it before. Let me see here. I'll try to post it. So I had to take it in. I was like, I hadn't seen it. What the fuck? Let me get me. Okay, yeah. And I hadn't seen it before. I put it in chat.
Classic. Yeah, it's been.
But it's it's is it a GIF or is it just that picture?
No, it does
Okay.
a 4 or 5.
It's
Yeah, Peyton has to shill post this like 15,000 times a second.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
Up
if
to the
I had,
globe.
and I don't know if I had seen it, and I just thought it was an interesting thing because that thing being on top, it's just an interesting fucking piece of footage. You know what I mean? And like,
That's not tilting over a ball though. It's lowering because the limit of the ground is closer than the boat is.
Nope.
right. But the issue with that becomes that you're looking at the tail of the thing on top versus like the melding of the. I had a really good conversation with this cat. What's up?
Yeah,
We've
because
got
it goes all the
building
way.
plans
This
that are
one goes all the
stationary.
way.
But see, the proposition of that photo is that the boat is going further away. We can see this artifact appear with buildings, which are obviously they're not growing legs and running away from you. This occlusion from the bottom up is like evident on buildings at a distance as well.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean, I get it. Like in the sense you could see like the top of the tower, or you could see like and like.
I would go so far as to say, man, that basically that boat going down is not being caused by the boat going away. It's actually caused by the refractive index increasing. You're actually watching it over the course of maybe an hour or two. It hasn't gone the distance that it would require to go down. That is actually an interesting proposition. If you know the height of that boat, how further distance would it need to, like, for that occlusion to complete from where it is appearing on the water at the horizon to when it's disappeared completely? Count that amount of time and see whether or not the boat can actually travel that distance around the curve. That would solve that, I think.
Yeah, you're saying if the boat's 200 feet tall, for example, there should be 200 feet of Earth curve at X miles. You're saying match that? Yeah. But we know that doesn't match up over and over. Like when you do that on multiple ones, that we know for a fact it doesn't. The globe guys agree, and then they say, well, it's actually a refracted horizon. It's not really the curve of the Earth. And you realize, he said, they will tell you that is not the curve of the Earth. That is a refracted horizon caused. Some will say it's a refracted horizon caused by the effects of the curve. Okay, it's just the effects of the curve, and it's a refracted horizon, and sometimes it looks flat, like a lot of the time.
No, it's a curve. You're seeing the boat go over the curve. Why? What is your problem?
Because there's numerous other ones in which the boats don't cut off from that same distance, therefore falsifying that it's Earth curve. Therefore, the globe guys have to say, well, actually, that's a refracted horizon. That's not really the curve. It's in a different position. Like when we see too far and all of the.
Well, we don't see too far. We don't see far enough for it to be flat. By the way, if this effect would not, the effect you're seeing with this boat would not occur on the flat Earth. It would disappear smaller. It would do it like it was like a painting. You know how everything fades to one spot? It would get shorter, taller, squishier. Everything would just fade out. Instead, you're seeing everything disappear from the bottom to the top. The sun does the same damn thing.
Look, so Nessa, could I like extrapolate from that little clip there? If I knew when it started and the time from when it finished, right? From when the boat's there and I can see it, and then to the time it disappears. Can I extrapolate the speed that boat must be traveling in your opinion?
You probably could, yeah. Well, you know how fast the boats are. I mean, these boats don't. We think they are like traveling at light speed or something.
Yo, I'd like to add something.
No, this clip indicates that they're traveling faster than what they actually are. It's allowed.
You have a mod.
Understood yet? Things work.
That's cool.
I can pee further than you can.
That's cool. Listen, just because in your mind you imagine things to work differently because you have a model to wrap your head around doesn't mean that that's how things are actually working. That's still your imagination and no more valid than anything else. So you can say I got all you want. I got. You ain't got shit. I wipe my ass with what you got.
Who are you talking to?
You.
Yeah,
you know.
What are you defending, bro?
But
so in the corner, if you look really close,
this stupid boat's going over the curve.
Just totality over it. But I'm saying that, and then he had like a couple lights, like a pink one and a green one. And then
I think I know what you're talking about. It was like Amazon. It looks like an Amazon building, like a warehouse, like an actual fucking. Is that what you're talking about?
It is kind of. It's more like kind of like a big like a pole barn type thing, maybe, or I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah. Maybe not.
Yeah. Well, I can go grab it, but like basically, and Skyfree shows this as well. But in a nutshell, like Skyfree does some really cool ones where she even makes these little puts little figures, like little figurines, and then just by changing the temperature, you can get that bottom up obstruction effect. And a lot of the globe guys admit it. Like some of these guys will say, "Yep, I agree, I concede. You can get bottom up obstruction over a planar surface with temperature change." So I'm not trying to claim that's all of what it is. Like that's just the totality over it. But I'm saying that can be replicated, that you can get, because you were talking about the skunk bait thing and then these different effects. And so I'm just saying you can replicate the bottom up obstruction effect. It's pretty uncanny. I mean, it looks, just like that Chicago skyline where like half the buildings are cut off, and it's like, oh, well, you can replicate that on a flat floor with little things and just changing temperature. You can create.
I always thought it interesting. Like, what tripped me out was putting the quarter on a table and then like kind of like having it go away from you, and then like the table kind of it winds up intersecting the quarter. That
one can be good, but I think you have to have the ratios, right.
Well, no, but I must have had the ratios right a couple times because I mean, just like I've consistently done it, and like it's just like you and the distance away is what the importance of it is. It's just interesting that you can recreate those effects. I just think it's the I'm just musing over the idea of how the globe is more acceptable to me without the boats going over the horizon argument. Do you know what I mean? And like, because all of the
that's
rest,
like their main one though. That's like what they
I know. That's why I've raised. I did. That's why this is it's a hard thing for me. You know what I mean? Like in a certain sense, because I'm like, wow, interesting. The globe is more appealing to me than it's ever been. But there's this point of contention that I have, and it's the religion. Let's say the Earth is a sphere, and that argument is bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, so it's still like, fuck the globers, because you fucking ruined our understanding of what the Earth might actually be by fucking putting in this stupid boats going over the curve of the Earth thing. You know? And like, so like, it's like, if that argument was eliminated, is the globe acceptable? And to me, it seems more and more as though it is. I just cannot tolerate, to a certain extent, the incongruity of it. And maybe I feel as though, like, that's kind of my, I don't know, just, that's what I'm mulling over.
The boats over the curb is just the reason we use boats over the curb is something you can see without buying a lot of equipment or anything. You just go down the beach, watch the damn thing.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. And but my issue with that, Phil, is the idea that the explanations available to explain that away over the almost like if the Earth be so vast, then refraction and such makes more sense to me than an actual physical obstruction.
Well, you
and
can say that, but that's the problem.
Wait, physical obstruction? What?
Well, yeah, but I mean, here's a few, just real quick. I found these few videos. This first one I'm posting, that's actually Joe Hanvey did that. And that was actually before he became more well-known after like some of the Antarctica stuff that he was doing videos on. This is actually earlier. I found this video when no one even knew who Joe Hanvey was, or very few. Like I had found it, or his channel and a couple of these. Anyways, that one's pretty interesting. He has a setup where he has like, it's a little more complicated. There's actually a part one. If you go to his actual channel, you can go to find the part one. I think it's a short, it's the part one where he shows the setup, where he kind of zooms out and shows the actual setup. But he has basically two mesh, like kind of basically trying to be like two flat planes of like mesh wire that are kind of suspended. And then he put the camera between the mesh wire. So it's supposed to be like, obviously the lower mesh wire would be like the ground, the upper one like the sky, I suppose. And then he has like a cart. And then he's like shining a light on the cart that represents the sun. And then he moves the cart away. So all he's doing is moving the cart away. And you get that obstruction from the mesh layer. You get the obstruction of like that light, which would be like the sunset. So if you kind of go, if you put it in like 2x speed or whatever, you can see like the sun kind of rising and setting, or it kind of, and it looks actually pretty uncanny to the way the sunset looks. It doesn't even really.
That's great. That's cool. It's interesting as hell. Yeah, that's cool. I just wonder
this one, and then this one, I think it's timestamped at that little clip of the Sky Free part. It just shows the warehouse, even though there's a longer one that Pebbles did. And then that's one of Sky Free is just clipped in. So yeah, I just wanted to post that because I mentioned that too. And Sky Free has done a bunch of them. So I'm just saying that bottom up obstruction over a planar surface can be replicated. Now, is that the whole story? Like, oh, that's it over a planar surface, totally solved? I wouldn't even say that. There may be more factors, but I do think that's a factor.
I want to follow up and add on what you said. So you see how Joe is backing up, and this effect is pretty linear. It goes as he's backing up all the way to when it sets the sun.
Yeah, he's pulling the cart away. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So you see that picture I posted?
Yeah.
Okay. I know this looks like a sphere, but you have to imagine this like rectangular or whatever for a planar setup. But this is basically the idea. If we're at the outer edge, light's bending up in this model universally, regardless of the atmospheric gradient. Atmospheric gradient does skew these angles, but this is regardless. So as the thing moves further and further and further away from you, the length of the light that is reaching your eye, we're talking simple things here, right? The length of the line that you would draw and you would diagram on paper, reaching your eye, as it's getting further away from you, that length is getting longer. When light curves, as it's getting longer, when it's bending up, as the thing goes further away from you, it's going to appear to drop lower and lower and lower. And when I use the word appear, I want to add more flavor than what FE gets. In this case, it's what the literal physical light is doing, but not the object. Because the thing is anyone following me here?
Yeah. No, but not really.
Yeah, I need like streaming or stuff. If we want to get any deeper on these topics, words are insufficient. I have to visualize it. But all I'm trying to say is, as this thing gets further away from you, simply because it's getting further, it's gonna get lower and lower and lower, appearance-wise. It's getting further away from you, but as it's getting further, it's literally dropping down. And the light appears lower, and that's because of in concave Earth, because of upwards refraction. So this effect with that picture I sent with these curved lines, north and south, the whole model, this effect explains literally like everything we see observing: sunsets, stars around us, cities cut in half. Why do planes appear to go? Actually, this is my opinion here. I'm just making claims. This is another level of perspective that you guys have yet to even understand. That this effect contributes to what we call perspective. That this effect modeled, if we see the lines, is be like, oh, that looks like perspective.
I'll
explain that right now in like 30 seconds. Look,
okay.
Blotech, I'm speaking. Blotech, I'm speaking. Blotech's muted on my end. I'm gonna wait until he stops going. Continue. This is the last thing I want to get with this picture I posted. This is like the key you could remember. The smiley face, the one that's angled like a smiley face, that's upwards refraction. The one that's angled like a frown, that's downwards refraction. You'll never forget that now. So that's it. Who asked the megacryometers?
Well, because
Okay, let me explain the glory.
hold on. I'll just if you're gonna shift to a topic, but I mean, Issa, I'm just kind of back and forth from my mic. I'm just trying to get in real quick. But just the thing about the boats over the curve is that like it's part of the story of the claim that we were wandering around, didn't know what the Earth was, and then these guys came along and blew our noggins to outer space and showed us we're actually on this huge ball spinning through this huge black void of whatever, right? So, and then the boats over the curve was like, that's like the 1-2 punch. That's one of them. You got sticks in the ground, boats over a curve. And they claim that like, that was one of the original things. Like, oh, they looked and saw these, boats and the mast, went head, mast first and disappeared. I mean, that's in all of their rhetoric. So, I mean, for them to like rescind that on any like, massive scale, like public or like, more popular, like mainstream scale, would just be, I mean, that would be like saying, Jesus didn't die on the cross or something within Christian or something like to that effect. Maybe I'm just trying to maybe draw a general analogy.
No, I agree.
It's so against what they claim the whole discovery, quote unquote, was, so.
Oh yeah. And I mean, like, what was it? What's, oh God, what's the guy,
Then it would while you're thinking of that,
Aristotle.
Aristotle. Well, yeah, Aristotle. Yeah, he was the one that saw the boats, right? They claim that's the.
But no. I don't know if it was Aristotle. What I was thinking of was Aristotle also thought that life like regenerated out of the dirt. You know what I mean? Like he was wrong. You know what I mean? So like, the idea that like there's been many an idea that was wrong, that like people held to be true for so long. And I just think like the boats going over the curve of the earth, like, just to put some sanity, you know what I mean, back in the equation. I think if they were to be like, hey, the earth is just too big to experience curvature, then it kind of makes everything like, it allows it to make sense to me. It's complete.
Yeah, but isn't it like
it is complete religious. I mean, it is part of the doctrine of the religion. You know what I mean? But it's also like, just because like Christianity or like Catholicism might be wrong doesn't mean Christianity or, God doesn't exist. Do you know what I mean? Just because somebody makes claim to a topic, and is adding a bunch of shit that doesn't make any sense, like doesn't mean that the premise is false completely. You know what I mean? So like, and that's why I'm saying like in light of like being correct and being astute to the truth, like let's say it is a globe, it is too big to experience curvature, and the idea that this boat's going over the curve of the earth argument has actually created flat earth and created all the distrust.
Yeah, but I think that's because it's the thing that's championing the lie, or it's one of them. It's one of those common. Oh, we know the Earth's a globe because. And by the way, they do claim it was Aristotle. His book On the Heavens, they claim, discusses how.
Is that right?
Yeah. And so that's what they kind of 77 A.D.
Well, yeah, the same shit. Just like he thought worms came out of dirt, just like regenerated out of dirt or something. He actually thought that.
Well, this says Pliny the Elder in 77 AD was in the 77 AD one, but he said it was articulated by him as well. It was claimed, but so I guess Pliny the Elder and Aristotle, but dude, the thing is though, if they did what you were saying though, I think what it would do because it's such especially now, if they were to say that, then I feel like people's response would be like, well, wait a minute, then is it a globe? Like, wait, you're telling me that these boats over the curve, that's not the curve? I thought that was a curve all these years. So now you guys are telling me it's not the curve. Now there's refraction and complexity and temperature changes and light refract bending, warping, and like, wait a minute. So that's why it would be like a virus in the matrix or whatever. It would be.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking right. And I think maybe that's the right argument. Like, maybe instead of arguing for flat earth without a model and whatever like that, maybe the actual argument is to remove a couple pillars that their religion's built on and still fucking be acceptable. Like it's like people who think like we went to space but the moon landing was fake. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that same kind of thing. It's like, hey, look, the earth might be a globe, but this is some bullshit. And let's address the bullshit so we can get back to the truth of the matter, which is maybe that the earth is a globe. But you guys fucked that up with this stupid argument about boats going over the curve of the earth. and when it can be explained in these various other means. And to me, I just think the globe becomes more acceptable under those conditions. I don't know what it
All right,
is.
well,
I'm
that's
not like,
interesting that for you it would be more acceptable, because I think probably for the masses it would be much less. It would be like, wait a minute, they told us all those years that these boats over the curve, that was how they first started, thinking it was a globe, and then they claimed that there was this whole discovery. So to me, for you, it's interesting if you feel like it would kind of appease your, or not appease if the right word, but kind of, be
yeah, but satisfied.
an interesting fine
Yeah.
wine to taste to see how whatever, you know what I mean. But for others, it just seems like, who don't know a lot about the topic, you are like, you've been in it in such depth in terms of being aware of all these factors of it, that you're like, you know what, you're like in the position more of, I'm not really saying I'm not trying to call you this, but it's sort of like, when like somebody who's like an elder who has more like knowledge and information on something, and all the younger ones are like, is it this, is it that, da, da, and they're like, I've got it, and the other one's like, I've got it, and the elder's like, well, actually, it's interesting to consider all perspectives, and
Yeah.
so
For sure.
Yeah.
But that's where like the globe really does like become, because literally it's what, it's the boats going over the earth argument, and the dismantling of that argument for myself. It's that, and the idea that I don't feel like I'm spinning, that like kind of made me a flat earther, or willing to be a flat earther. And so, and never mind 9/11 and fucking JFK and fucking all the politics involved and Nazis and fucking science and all the rest of it. But like, it's like, if we're still looking for the truth, you know what I mean? Like, then like, the earth being a ball makes sense without that argument. And like, and I guess like, if the masses aren't going to accept it, well, we're used to that, you know. We're used to that as fucking being like talking about flat earth for ever many years. So I don't really care about that, but I think and it's been my point of contention for years, dude. Like, even Jem, like years and years ago, my offer to him was, hey, I'll concede that at 120,000 feet you might see a little bit of curvature. But but you got to give me that no boat went over the curve of the earth from the horizon, from the seashore. Like, that's retarded to me. It doesn't work. It doesn't fucking, it's completely incompatible. But the globe makes sense without that argument, dude. To me, anyway. I don't know. I mean, it's fantastical. You know what I mean? But God is good, man, and God is mysterious. Why couldn't He make it that way? To take it there. It's interesting. I've definitely been affected by like the current, like, I don't know. It's interesting.
So wait, you're saying the boats over the curve is an issue in a way because, are you saying partly because it's not consistent? Like, if it was, a physical obstruction, it would happen consistently at a consistent distance, et cetera. Are you saying like that type of thing? Therefore, there's all these other factors around it in terms of like, that was just one. I'm not saying I don't know if you're saying that one or something like that, but I'm just, and you're suggesting that what should they claim? So, because I don't think it's necessarily that strong of evidence for the globe, even because it's just one thing. It's like one observation. They push it as such, though, as kind of the layman's, kindergarten level, like, oh, we know it's a globe because boats over a curve, like it's, sticks in the ground, shadow on the moon, on the sun during an eclipse. Like, there's just like these 5 things that basically people say. And then anyone who really knows more about the model, they go beyond those 5. So most people just know pictures from the globe, pictures or going to the moon, etc. We could all name them. The top 5 kind of things that people just say, we know the Earth's a globe because at that just really remedial level. But you're saying that you don't think it's a compelling argument because, for what reason? Like, because it's not consistent. Like, it's not a consistent place in which like there's a physical obstruction. It's much more of a fluid kind of thing that has refraction and everything else involved. So then what would the argument then be that they would say if they replace it? They would say, well, it's a globe because of all these other reasons. That boats over the curve thing was kind of BS because actually that's more of a refractive thing or something to that effect. I'm trying to
Well, no, it's just the consistency. The idea that the Earth, like, if you're going to say that the Earth is too big to see curvature, and then say that you could see a boat go over the curvature, it doesn't make sense.
Oh, dude, I've got a meme for that. I'll post it.
Right, like but if you were to stay consistent, like if the argument was consistent, like if I were to argue for the globe, You know what I mean? Like I would dismantle that portion of it, and like and you would find common ground with all the flat earthers. It's like so many times when we've said to ourselves, like said, or it's like I've said, is like, well, we can all agree that the Earth presents itself as flat, and like people pipe up out of nowhere, like there's a boat's going over the, you know what I mean? Like, nuh-uh. Like, if they were just consistent with the idea that it's too big to experience curvature, there's no flat Earth, man. There wouldn't have been a flat Earth movement. Straight up. And I've said it forever, man. They've made the holy mountain out of a molehill. It's the holy mountain of flat Earth is the boats going over the curve of the Earth thing, and that argument in particular. That argument, it takes the forefront for any flat earther that I know. I mean, right? I mean, is there any other thing that made people a flat earther? Like, it's that.
Well, I mean, you have to explain this one away because it's such a great proof that the Earth is not flat. You guys have to come up with all sorts of explanations of why it's not flat. Yes, you do.
No, we don't.
Yes, you do.
No, we didn't. No, but here's the thing.
No two flat earthers agree on what causes this to happen.
All right, I will agree with you about that. But my point being is that, Michelle, you can understand my position about that point of contention, though, right?
Well, I mean, you've got to explain it away.
The inconsistent. No, the inconsistent. Actually, well, that's either the Earth is too big that you can't see curvature, or the Earth isn't that big and you can see curvature. So which one is it?
The Earth is big. It's difficult to see curvature. It can be seen in certain areas. You have to look for it. It's not like obvious. We don't live on a fucking basketball.
What do you mean it's not obvious? It should be everywhere.
No,
it should be blasting your balls.
We're really small.
That's right.
We are really small. And we live on a really big thing. That makes, if you get close enough to the surface of any sort of a three-dimensional surface, it will look flat.
All right, Shell, can you at least accept, like, do you understand my argument? Like, in the sense that, like, if we're gonna keep, like, if I were to join the Globers, right, it'd be on the grounds that we got rid of that fucking argument because the Earth's just too big to see curvature. So
is this just your way of setting up that you'll never be a Glober? Because that, dude,
no, because
you can't see it though. You might need some assistance. That's why we make instruments.
No. See, like, even if I was a Glober, right? This is why I was like Grimm and like those guys who were Globers because they were just like they're Globers, but they hate these.
Grimm's not Glober.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, he is. He's a fucking. Me and him argued about. Me and him. He's one of the first. I know Grimm from way back.
Yeah, he's a Globe.
Yeah, Grimm is a hardcore Glober.
You can have Grimm.
Exactly, and I would gladly take Grimm because
he argues like a flat earther.
No, he's arguing. Well, I mean, even Grimm and I disagree about like things. But like my point is that like that I would be of like the ilk of a Grimm, like in the sense that I'd be, I would be arguing for the globe, but still hate the religious fucking anti-flat earther group of people that are just miserable. You know what I mean? Like, and like I could still be like, even on the globe, like people still don't like all those motherfuckers. Like, so I'd still not like you motherfuckers. I could join the globe and be like, I'd never argue that point, and I'd make fun of all of you for making that argument because again, like, and that's why I probably will be a flat earther for fucking whatever, is because just because fuck you guys. Just on the exclusive grounds of like, fuck that, because it's the inconsistency that makes it so like a religious cult, man.
But it won't go that way, dude, because they need like for general acceptance within, and I'm just talking in a general sense, you kind of need to go with all of it. So you notice Payne has to show right there. It's not good enough to think it's a globe to be on the globe side, because he just said Grimm's actually thinks like a flat earther or something like that. So it's not enough that Grimm thinks it's a globe. They still deject him or whatever it is, don't accept because he's not going with the whole story in that way. So he said if you were to ever do that, I don't think you would sort of end up almost like Jaron or Ranty, I guess, like these guys who would sort of like
but that's all right.
They lose favor amongst the kind of truth folks, and if you want to use the term flat earth, they lose favor amongst that, and then they kind of don't really have the favor of the globe folks anyways, and then it just ends up being this like weird in between zone, and then
but that's okay. That's all right though. This isn't a popularity contest. You know what I mean? Like, and like that's the point. Is like, I mean, even like I'm just trying to say like. It's that.
Well, you're just talking about like going, being like, hey, you guys, there's bullshit here, but I'm just saying like going halfway into.
Oh no, you're so right, bro. No, you're so right. But I think like anytime you take, like, it's like any of this shit. Like, even like how I am with the sovereign citizen people. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like half sovereign citizen, but then I'm like, but the government's from God, and they're like, die. Like, so they fucking hate me for that.
I think Grimm is a bad example because he just argues for the sake of argument. I don't think Grimm's a glober. Whenever I've talked to him, he's argued flat Earth really well.
Well, no, he's like, I mean, me and him have argued. He was arguing. I know he's a glober just because we've argued for years now, or we used to anyway.
No, he's never indicated that. I think. Yeah, I've never heard him say that it's like in any way.
He's an electric universe guy. He's an electric
universe guy.
But he thinks outside of the mainstream model. Yeah, he does think it's a globe, but he thinks there's additional things going on.
Yeah, and like that even can make sense. I just think it's anytime you're going to take a hardcore stance about the shape of the Earth and the cosmos, I think one needs to reflect before they start sounding like somebody who's come back from the dead and they're going to tell you what it's like when you get to heaven. It's like the same shit to me. You can't know. So because I know you can't know, and because you're going to come in and tell me no, it's like that's how I know you're crazy. And I just think that and it only it's like I've always a lot of anti-flat earthers have created flat earthers by being such dicks to people questioning this shit that it doesn't do the globe any good. It's not that you guys even give.
But isn't that indicative in a way of what's true and what isn't on some level? Like I'm not trying to. That's a big broad generalization, but I'm just saying, isn't there something to be said for?
I think that's what started flat Earth. Is like the idea of like, well, fuck these people. because they think they know, and we're trying to be intellects, and the idea that you're an intellectual is like flat Earth. Early on, especially, nobody called themselves flat earthers. They were just quietly paying attention to the shit show of the people that did call themselves flat earthers. But like, I just think people became a they got a little more gumption about it when they started getting attacked for questioning the globe. And that's what kind of drives
questioning the globe. You need
I feel like
this thing called evidence, and I've asked now for years, and all I can get out of flat earthers is it looks flat, which is one of the ones you came up with today, and water, which is the other one you come up with today. So other than it looks flat as water, what do you got?
No, you're not wrong. I mean, like, I'm not. That's why, like I said, the globe is very immutable. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways. My issue is that is Ricky muted for some reason? Does he want to be muted? He shouldn't be muted.
No, he's good. I think he does that to himself so he doesn't hot mic. He's just some of these phones have a thing, where they'll hot mic you, and so I think he just puts himself on server mute just so he doesn't hot mic.
Okay, cool. He's not like. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure.
He's doing it. He's doing it himself. Yeah, he can mute himself.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I just think like it's that inconsistency. But I will say like the globe is growing on me. You know what I mean? It is interesting.
Why? Well, does any of that have to do with the YouTubers taking a vacation in Antarctica, or not? For you, in terms of what you're saying, in terms of that?
No, more to do. I mean, not so much. I mean, I guess maybe it's interesting to have kind of like because you think about it, for years we haven't known, and we've kind of like if we're going to accept all the footage is on face value, which I'm willing to do, then we have a 24-hour Antarctic sun, which is again, it's like you have all these kind of things that comport to the globe. It makes sense, or it can make sense without all the jazz, that like I don't know, like for instance, like gravitation still doesn't jive with me, like like all those other arguments still come into play, but the shape of the Earth and its relationship to the sky is just an interesting interplay. And if but I always do fall back on the idea that we only understand like 3% of the equation, so we can't really know. It could be dark polarity that makes it look like that, for all I know.
Yeah, but that's what magnetic fields do, though. Like the two rotations like that, like clockwise and counterclockwise. So I mean, whatever the layout of the land is, like that matches what we can replicate on the ground. So that's pretty reflective, and therefore, that that would make sense actually that it would have that pattern related to the way magnetic fields and all of that move.
You mean in what model would you think? What do you mean?
Sorry, I'm driving. I think my connection should be all right, but I know there's a couple parts here. This part of the drive that goes out a little, but no. What was I saying?
Like the electromagnetic effects, like in the electromagnetic effects, would you see that more as like a flatter thing or like a globe thing, or just it's a whatever it is thing?
Well, I guess the way I was.
Yeah, what were you thinking?
Well, I guess kind of, yeah. Well, I think maybe just the way I meant it is that, if you have a celestial sphere that surrounds a globe Earth and all of that, that is, what they use in their model and so on. And without going into all that, but you have that, and I understand the general way that can work. I'm not saying that's what it all is, but I understand the layout of that. I'm not even contesting that their explanation of the 24-hour sun is. I'm not saying it's a problem in the globe even really. It's fine. But I'm just saying that pattern of like the northern star rotation and then the equator point and then the southern star rotation, in addition to the northern 24-hour sun and then 6 months later the southern 24-hour sun. I'm just saying that layout, that's kind of like a figure eight, if you will. I'm not really calling it a figure eight, but I'm just saying you have the one rotation. It's like your left eye, right eye. It's the, there's so many polarities in nature and so on. But I'm just saying those two fields create that, like the vortex and the counter vortex, the clockwise and counterclockwise. I'm just saying that's like a universal pattern in nature. Like you can drag a paddle through water or like a spoon through water, and it creates those clockwise and counterclockwise. You've got the whole like hurricanes in the north and south and the effects of that and the wind patterns and so on. But I'm just saying, like in terms of the star rotations like that, and then the equator middle point. I'm not really at my computer, so I can't post images. But yeah, I'm sure you guys have seen them and stuff. So where it shows that, like the clockwise and the counterclockwise, which goes back to like the way a magnetic field is structured and toroidal fields and ferrocells, which you can replicate that. So I mean, on a small scale with a ferrocell, you can replicate that exact pattern. So the fact that the sky is doing that is not really that far of a stretch to me. It's like, okay, we can already replicate it on the Earth. It's how magnetic fields move and flow. At least as with the way their motion. I mean, what they are is a whole other question. But I'm just saying the motion of them, fits that, and therefore to have that happening above a planar surface doesn't seem like a contradiction at all. Like you would just have a stereographically projected celestial sphere above a planar surface. And the stereographic part is those two rotations. Like, like stereo, left and right. Like, so yeah, stereographic is taking a sphere and then projecting it, the two poles end up being those two rotations, and the equator ends up being the middle point. And that is what we observe. They claim we're seeing a celestial sphere like around a globe, but actually that can be the same geometry happening above a planar surface. And the fact that it matches those magnetic fields structures is sort of a part of the beginning of a full explanation, but it would be at least the beginning of seeing the resonance, just like you can see the Fibonacci sequence in different scales of nature and fractals.
Yeah, man. It's kind of like I like the that concept of like Dios luminescence, of the stars. But I really just And it does seem more, I don't know, like, I don't know. Flat Earth just seems a little more logical in the sense of like the way a house is built, the way I just feel like there's like logic to that. But then the paradox, of like mapping, the paradox of how we use the stars to map, and it kind of leads us into the position of being into a globe. It's just also interesting, you know. But yeah, I have a hard time with like the idea of gravitation or any of that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, they're conceptually complicated.
Yeah, like just the logical, like just the way that the ground is the ground, weight goes down,
yeah, it's all like
level, all of
logic.
that.
Yeah.
And then the idea of having to all be clinging to a ball, like it's one thing to fall down with weight, but another thing to like be sticking to a ball with all the water sticking to it. It is a very, it's a just very abstract to think about physics working that way.
Well, see, I guess simplistic explanations are not always the correct ones, even if they seem as though they're like common sense or they seem to the most immediately logical.
That's fine, but I'm not saying just seam. I mean, we could get into measurements as well in terms of level and water and horizontal and drop over distance. I mean, there's a million other factors, but yeah, but I am saying like we are kind of talking about, we're not really talking about like proving it with this point. Like this is not like an argument to prove it. Like, hey, this is the simpler thing, or not simpler, but this is, I mean, I was kind of just saying, just when, to live on a surface and then things drop down to that surface is connected to everything we've ever experienced. Whereas things sticking to a sphere is completely foreign to anything we've ever experienced. So that's why I was saying it's abstract. It's foreign to anything that we can even measure or validate. And I've never seen it validated elsewhere either. That's why we're in, that's why
the only evidence
discussions have raged on.
And the only evidence for a globe has to necessitates using the stars. You know what I mean?
Is the Earth, why isn't Earth just falling away from the sun?
I mean,
Gravity.
because
Just wait for it. Yeah, gravity. That's it.
why is the Earth not floating away from the sun?
Well, yeah, if your explanation is we've never seen anything except weight goes down, then why wouldn't the Earth follow that same pattern,
Well, this is what's interesting. This is why Nietzsche got actually interested, because he when he wrote his passage about like mankind killing God, he said it specifically in reference to this new scientific estimation that the sun was traveling through space. And like he was like, well, which way is up? Which way is down? Which way? Like, there's no order in any of this now. So it's like you have the antithesis to what we experience, which is order, which is that things are below you that fall, that are heavy, and like, and lighter above you that are whatever. So I don't know. It's just, I don't know about the sun flying away, but I know Nietzsche thought it was. I just don't. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't thought about why the sun would fly away before. Maybe. I don't know.
You're saying why gravity would keep them in their orbits. I mean, that is their model. Yeah, they're going to claim that. I mean, the way that gravity is claimed to function and its distance, and then with mass, and then the calculations. That's why they had to make the system the size they had to make it. Like the radius, and I won't get into all of it, but yeah, the way they had to make the radius and the sizes of the balls and the distance of the balls and how they orbit around the sun, they had to be put in that order, etc., in order to match the way the sky actually moves. So with all those gravitational calculations, it is a theoretical system in which, yeah, what you're saying, like the reason that the sun orbits around the sun has to do with, at least in part, this gravitational vector that's causing you to stick to the ball. But except that part has to do with the Earth's gravitation, whereas, the sun and the Earth is a different relationship than you and the Earth. So that's, yeah, so just the gravity of that. But that doesn't mean we're like antipodal to each other on a sphere orbiting around a massive spherical ball in the sky we call the sun. I mean, that's a whole nother leap to take from that.
Well, sure, but it's not like decided that was the case and then worked to justify that conclusion.
Okay, so you think they authentically discovered it was the case? Is that what you instead of concocting a model, you're saying they really discovered that was what it really was?
I mean, I'm not sure I'd completely agree.
That's your claim, or that's what you're saying?
I'm not sure I'd completely agree with this ambiguous quote-unquote they, but I think that's generally how modeling goes.
Well, it's kind of a they though, because there's characters they tell us were involved in this mind-blowing discovery that we were actually on a ball, is what they claim. So there are these handful of characters. We know them all: Galileo, Newton. I mean, we could go through them. You know, there's this handful of them that we're told are the guys that blew our noggins. You know, we're not told about like a bunch of regular civilian humans coming to some huge epiphany that we're actually on a ball. Seems like some very cult-related, alchemical, Jesuit, and we could go into the whole thing, but it seems like some very few little brotherhood of dudes that claimed that they did this. And then that brotherhood ended up creating NASA.
Wow. Except that a lot of these things were discovered long before the Jesuits were even a thought, because the Jesuits weren't founded to what, 15 something?
Well, that's what fascinates me with the French.
The Jesuits were way later. They were way later, yeah. I mean, but they're part of it. But
the French Revolution, man. Like the whole idea of killing God, killing everything involved with imperialism.
I don't think
when did the French Revolution happen?
The French Revolution.
It was like the 1700s, and like I'm just saying, like the idea of like the French Revolution was set out like let's say if you were going to get into conspiracy land about this stuff, like they were dead set against like monarchy. And part of monarchy is like that the king was given rights from God and shit. So like their whole thing was, and like I've said before, had I been alive at that time, I probably would have been one of the revolutionists to some extent, because the church was so overstepping its bounds that like I think the church overstepped its bounds in authority, that those people and those men wanted to get rid of this like religious sentiment in government. And like that's what happened, right? So like if that would be the case, I just think that there was an agenda to eliminate God from government. And in doing so, like the globe was a secular cosmology that, to do that. Because
there were
what's
globe
up?
models before the French Revolution.
Oh no, I agree that they were, but I'm saying that they were also in like they were cult. They were like, like people, not everybody read books, not everybody could read, not everybody was as free as we are today or as educated. And there was, these groups of people that learned this stuff and like to their benefit, of course. But like there was also like, not a common belief amongst man, like I think anyway, that like people generally could have accepted that the earth be flat. And then you'd have a group of intellects who were like, hey, we've surmised that this is the shape and this is the thing, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. And they've always kind of maybe rallied against the God-fearing masses. And the French Revolution, et cetera, was like the coup de grace, you know what I mean? Because they could eliminate the church from religion or from government, which is a good thing. Like, but I just think right now we're at a point where we're finding balance. Like, for instance, like calling out the moon landing. The moon landing is the only thing that is the conclusive proof that you guys or Globers, whatever, can point to as being the one scientific experiment that actually like solidifies all of the theories. And
What?
when that
No, you're severely no.
Before I
not what all the
okay, but before you go, just let me finish. Just the idea of our whole humanity's lifetime, we've been discussing like the various ways that the earth could be shaped, or the various makeup of the moon, or this, that, the other thing. And it's like we've been deprived of that conversation because of the moon landing to some extent, or the alternatives because of the moon landing, because it solidified the current model. And that's, I think, something that like our DNA just detests. Like it is a mysterious thing. To claim that you could know something that is impossible to know is crazy. And I think that's kind of what the moon landing achieved. And that's why it also so many flat earthers, because it just doesn't make sense. But I point to the
No,
French
you're-
Revolution as
the Earth is under no the universe. The Earth is under no obligation to make sense to you. I'm sorry. It's true.
What does that even mean?
That means that if you can say, "Well, I don't understand it," okay, so what?
right, but that's also to the point of like, but then like if you're gonna cling to the globe and you're gonna say that you know what I mean, just because you think you understand it doesn't mean that you're correct.
What?
You know.
You mean the fact that we know something doesn't mean we're correct? Huh. Interesting.
Well, you think
No,
you
you
know.
didn't address what he said. Yeah. Just because you think you've concocted a certain levels of evidences that you think pass a check that you think is true doesn't mean you're actually correct at the end of the day. And therefore, asserting it with like a condescending vibe is
Well,
not.
also,
So I'm not
You
trying
have
to call you out, but I'm just
better
saying
yet, NASA Show. I could
could
say the
be
same thing.
problematic.
Well, yeah, we could say the same thing to you of like the flat Earth is under no fucking obligation to explain itself
Yeah,
to you.
except that
Either you get it or you don't, man.
Yeah, except that we have
Well,
evidence
I
that
guess-
shows that the flat Earth is wrong, and you have no evidence for the flat Earth.
Well, we have
Other
quite a bit
than
of
it looks. No, you don't. It looks flat. Is the only one I've heard so far today.
Well, it's better than your shit about
No, it's
believing the
not.
Nazis. Well, you used to
You can
believe in the
measure it.
moon landing, right?
But we get the moon landing. We don't need the moon landing. We knew the Earth was a sphere, long. How many longs want to go? 2,500 year longs ago.
Is there
What do you think they had
is there
back
any-
then, dude? 2,500 years ago, what do you think they had, dude? Sticks in the ground, boats over the curve, and a bunch of theories looking at the sky? Like, let's be
And
real. What did they have? Nothing.
And math. They
But-
had math.
yeah, but you can map out sky observations. Anyways,
They had
go ahead,
math.
guys.
They had math.
It's kind of a separate topic, but I just was jumping in on that. Go ahead.
Well, they had math. Math is a language. They use this language to explain that the Earth is a sphere.
Yeah, but that's just extrapolating from the sky. That's not.
No,
it's
not
the
really.
Earth.
No, not really. It's measuring.
It's extrapolating from positions in the sky linked with calculations of assumptions about a
Using math,
particular
right.
model of the ground.
Yeah, using
Right, but
math instead of words. They use math, but you're correct.
Well, yeah, the moon landing, like they said when they dropped the hammer and the feather, like they said that we just proved that Galileo and Kepler were right.
I would use the word demonstrate against here because you guys
Right,
have
but they had no other demonstration about like the difference of gravity on the moon.
What do you
and
mean?
Earth
You didn't see them jumping around?
until well, that's what I mean is
No, dude, it's a good point though, dude. What he's saying is that those guys, the theories of how gravitation works with the bodies and all of that, was quote unquote confirmed when these Freemasons went up there and dropped. He is correct. I mean, that is what the story. Oh, look at that! They were right. Bada boom, bada bang. I mean, that's what they did, right? It's like we got this. Hey, look at that! It showed exactly what those guys predicted. That on another body, the moon, the gravitational everything is going to function to where when you drop the feather and the whole thing. I mean, that he is correct in that being the narrative. Are you disagreeing with that?
You've seen the one in the vacuum chamber where they did the same thing here on Earth. So what's your problem?
Well, that's a little bit of a separate thing because that's like on Earth in a chamber. We could discuss that too, but I mean, that was the only time that is claimed that humans went to another body that is claimed to be, we're on this ball and then there's the moon ball, claimed to go to that moon ball and actually, quote unquote, check that the gravity was that, therefore validating all this heliocentric and the balls in space and the solar system. I'm just kind of steelmanning the mainstream narrative. Not really.
But it was long before that because we had to know gravity, had to know the mass of the moon in order to get there using that language we call math. And that was a demonstration that he did on TV, and it it conformed to observations that we have here on Earth.
Also, there was more than one moon landing.
There's 6, but yeah. I think that was 15 that he did that, the feather. No,
yeah, but that was a little window. I mean, in terms of the overall trajectory of NASA, it was like a few years. Yeah, it was very 69 to 72.
Yeah, it was 15. Dave Scott.
Yeah, but that was proving Galileo and Kepler's theories were accurate on this other body, right? So I mean, that was from the perspective I guess if you believe it, you could say, "Hey, look at that! Their model fit their whatever." But if you actually see it as a hoax of sorts, it's just like a setup. They're just like setting up shots for themselves,
But
and
you
then
can figure if you look,
validating it with the propaganda that they get people to believe is true.
but if you look at the movie, if you look at the little clip, you can calculate how fast they're falling, and they weren't on the Earth. It's not falling at 9.81 meters per second per second. It's falling significantly slower.
Also, the Soviet Union was the first one to have people in space. We were just the first to make contact with the moon, and I don't think the main goal of the moon landings was to prove Galileo and what was it, Copernicus?
It was Kepler.
Kepler. He wasn't. I mean, he said when he wasn't saying the whole moon landings were. He was saying that the specific hammer and the feather drop test thing and the script that they were reading, the words that the guys were saying when they were doing it too.
Yeah, well, look at that. You can tell that it's not falling at 9.1 meters per second per second. It's falling significantly slower.
Well, yeah. Do you think it's more political than scientific?
What, the reason we went there? Yeah, definitely political. It was to beat the Russians. After we went there 6 times, everybody said, "Hey, we beat the Russians. The Russians aren't going. Let's spend our money on something else, like the Vietnam War."
Yeah. Oh boy, we made it to the moon. Let's bomb Cambodia now.
Yeah, basically, that was okay. We beat them there. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's bomb Cambodia. Let's do something else.
Yeah.
Dude, if people didn't stand up to that war, dude, we'd probably all be being drafted today still.
It would have, yeah, it would have eventually gone its way out, but it wasn't.
That's interesting. It was actually about the French giving over the contracts to the rubber trees.
Yeah,
to
it's one of the few. It's after we pull the French's ass out of the fire in 1914 and again 1942. We tried to do it again in 1960s and it didn't work out as well.
Yeah, we were taking over the rubber trees that they were like some contractor trying to get.
Yeah, the French.
Weird ass shit.
The French got their asses
so weird
kicked,
is,
and we came in and we got our asses kicked too. So.
Yo, Shill, what do you think about that guy McGowan who wrote that book about how like the whole hippie movement was created by the CIA? Like Jim Morrison's dad was the fucking head naval commander on the Gulf of Tonkin vessel that started the Vietnam War, and then his son is the fucking the voice of the resistance, like and the guy McGowan, he released this book about fucking Laurel Canyon, and then he got like some turbo cancer and died like 2 months after he published it. Sad, but yeah, fucking weird. What do you think about that, Shelley? You think the hippies were created by the CIA?
No. Why would the hippies
What
create
about-
an anti? I don't know.
Well, what about-
That sounds far-fetched.
Well, what about the? Well,
Unless
do you know
think-
Ken? Hold on.
Unless you
Do you
think
know
the CIA
Ken Kesey?
is the CIA involved in everything?
Do you know who Ken Kesey is?
No.
Oh, he wrote a book called The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. He talks about how
that
like
one.
he
That
did
guy.
it. Yeah, they were in like the Berkeley or whatever, and they were getting all the LSD from the CIA. And then like the Grateful Dead, they were getting their shit from like I mean, I don't know the extent of it, but it is like McGowan writes about it in his book. I haven't read the book. I've just seen an interview with him. Should get the book. But yeah, and then like actually it was the studio was in the area of Laurel Canyon where they kept all the NASA footage that they lost. It's fucking weird, man. Yeah, the CIA might have created the hippie movement. I mean, shit, CIA might have created the flat Earth movement. You know? But it's crazy. Like Jim Morrison's dad was like, one of the top commanders when we got like the false flag of the Gulf of Tonkin, which is unclassified or declassified or whatever. It's like a false flag to get us into the war so we could take over the contracts for the fucking rubber trees.
He was an admiral.
Admiral. No shit. Yeah. That's just crazy. But yeah, definitely like the moon landing like is the only concrete proof of all of the theoretics about like motion and everything in the sky. Like the moon landing is the one tangible, quote unquote, proof that science has. I mean, other than the, I guess if you're gonna, go and accept all the space programs and shit. I don't know, but that shit seems way too political to be believed. There's too much politics in that. Like, do you guys all believe we went to the moon? Like, I know you do, Shill, but or whatever's another guy talking. I don't know if he left.
I'll say yes.
You believe in the moon landing?
Yeah.
Right on. Do you think there might have been any reason for trickery?
Yeah, there would be plenty of reasons for them to make a story. And yeah, I've talked with Jin at length about this. It's one of his topics, so we talk a lot when I'm in the same room as him. But on balance, I think the evidence points towards it. There are some things you could point to that look kind of like trickery or, from first glance or whatever, look suspicious. But on balance, I think it's not out of the realm of reason to say that they actually did happen.
Would it even matter if people believe it or not? I mean, you got people that go to Comic-Con.
I just think it's interesting that
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. Go ahead.
No, there's more people that worry about what's happening in the Marvel universe than any of this shit, this stuff,
Well, see, my thing is that it's literally ended a conversation that mankind had for eons. Right?
I think more people downvoted the woke Snow White video than discussed this.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, but even think of the subtlety of it. You know what I mean? The subtlety of it, of like, oh yeah, we've been to the moon. Even if it's just in the background in history and people look at it as it happened. It's like this subliminal, ending of a conversation that our forefathers had since time began. And like, and now like flat earthers are criticized for having the conversation. And yet the only real proof is this moon landing thing.
But the moon landing
is not the only proof. For fuck's sake, keep on telling you. We knew the Earth was a sphere long before we landed on the moon. How many?
Well, people thought it was, but then they had to go up there and
No, they didn't have to. It was proven.
Well, I've heard about the Universal logo, and it was in black and white in the beginning of movies and stuff, and it showed a globe before we had anything up high enough to really know for sure. So
no, we've known the Earth as a globe since like 2,500 years ago.
If you map it and project it, you could make a globe before seeing it full, and then we saw it full.
And also, these are independent things. I mean, is there anyone here who thinks the Earth is flat, but the moon landing was real? Earth is flat, but there's still something solid up there to land on? And I'm saying there's a lot of possibilities.
Yes, there was a Scottish guy.
Really? There's somebody who thinks that
Yes. What's his name? I chatted with him for hours, and we had a great time. I was actually up at the mall buying shoes. I spent like 2-3 hours chatting with him. It was a hoot. And what's his name? He was a Scottish guy, and he was a truck driver. He'll come to me. But anyway, yeah. So people can be landing and other stuff like that. But the Earth is flat.
That's an uncommon bird.
I know you're talking about Ali B.
Ali B.
Ali B.
Yes.
Yeah, man, I know
He
him.
was a great guy.
Yeah, he's good people. I like him.
Yeah.
It may be an uncommon position, but it's still one of the possibilities. These are logically distinct questions, the shape of the Earth versus if there's something solid that you could get to with a rocket that you could land on. You have a floating moon disk above a flat Earth.
Yeah, real quick, when was the last time you seen Ali B? I haven't seen him in fucking ages.
Oh, yeah. I did see him in something.
Recent?
Yeah, well, recent being at some point
Like
last year.
Discord or something? Or?
Yeah, I saw him.
Cool. Good.
And I go, oh, there's Ali B, and he was gone. But he was present for moments too. But
Right
sure
on.
me that he was still alive.
Right on.
Yeah, I miss chatting with him because he's got good thoughts. You know, we don't agree, but he's good to talk to.
Nice.
People like that we need a lot of. You know.
Well, I think that's also kind of it's kind of weird, like the real litmus test in all this is, can you talk to people who disagree with you and still maintain,
Yeah.
like manners, because that was my,
Yeah, that was the
always
thing. I just remember the thing. I thought you guys had left. You probably already discussed it, but the Blue Origin thing with Katy Perry, there are a lot of normies calling it fake. Have you seen that? I thought that was what? Who was the guy on YouTube? Conservative commentator. Oh, good gracious! I can't remember his name. Anyway, there's one guy, and it seems like a normie, and he goes, "Yeah, it looked fake." It'll come to me who he is.
Was there ever? I asked this earlier today, but it seemed more relevant now, I guess. But was there ever a time in history, in all of history, where like a society or government institution / religion or whatever didn't have an explanation or story about the sky? I mean, to say that, oh, we knew this, we knew that, we knew this, we knew that, like, is that really kind of boasting, like, for real? Because everybody thought they knew, like, going back throughout all of history. So,
at any point in time, they didn't.
Yeah, have you ever gone to, like, I don't know, a science department, or was there ever a time in history where a government or religion didn't have an explanation for the sky? Like, you would go to your church, or you would go to your king or whoever, and they wouldn't have a story for you. I mean, I would say that it would be highly, it would leave them in a highly vulnerable position if they did not lead with some sort of authority or authoritative position on cosmology.
Right.
So, like, you don't want people looking for answers or going, oh, let me figure it out. You want to tell them what it is, and then you want them to interpret everything through that lens. Even if it's wrong, they'll come up with something to make it work. Like, I don't know, like dark items or something like that, for example. Like the dark side, the dark force. Because that's cool.
So I don't think you're. I don't know. Isn't that good? It's a good question though. But here's the thing with governments or authorities or scientists or whatever it is, they have to give the appearance of knowing, even if they really actually don't.
Yeah, going back through all of
things.
time. That's what I mean. Like, it's not important to say that, oh, we already knew that the Earth was a globe 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't speak up because I realized, oh, this is Nessa's show. Like, well, I'm just going to waste these words. Like, fucking
Why is it
waste of time?
Why is it wrong to say that we knew the shape of the Earth 2,500 years ago?
Because everybody knew everybody thought they knew what cosmology was at every point in history. It's like
but they
a
weren't
prerequisite to have a regime of any type.
Well, this one, they were right. 2,500 years ago, they knew the Earth was there.
Well, guess what?
2,500 years ago, they measured it within, I think, 7% of its currently accepted value.
Of 7% of its own expectation, which is basically
no,
like
7% of the value we have now.
Now,
it wasn't.
No.
The other thing, it wasn't
they measured with only
expectation.
like a 7% error of what we know it to be now.
Yeah.
No, they have a small. They have single digit percentages of like, well, if it's even correct, which it wouldn't be correct, because like if I had a 200 tooth key and I only had 6 teeth, obviously I'm not opening that lock, right? I there's just saying you have like well, we have these couple components here doesn't necessarily get you through the door, my friend.
Actually,
So
it
to
does.
say
It was
that
a,
to
it
say
was a
that
very,
like
it was a very
dark
good
matter,
observation. It was a very good
dark matter
observation.
and
We're not
dark
talking about dark
energy.
matter. We're not talking about dark
Well,
matter.
I
We're not talking about
am,
dark
and
energy.
I'm
We're
still
not.
speaking, and you're being
But we're
rude.
not. See, you're gonna
This is
veer.
why I didn't waste my time.
Dude,
This is why I didn't
You're
take.
gonna veer
This is
into
why I
change.
didn't
You're
waste
gonna
my time.
change the topic now because you're gonna admit now we're gonna change the topic to the cutting edge science of today, and the answer, you're not gonna like my answer because we weren't
Well,
talking about that. We were talking
let
about
him get
something we
his
did 2,500 years ago.
let him get his thought out, and then I want to hear it all.
No, the reason being is that they didn't have they didn't have the ability to observe how wrong the idea was back then. So they had to basically concede that there's some other force there or mass there in order to keep the same paradigm. So
What?
yeah, they
What are you talking
conceded
about?
that, but they're consuming it as part of the plan.
Who conceded what?
Well, when you guys
You don't
came up with your globe theory, did you have dark forces and energy
don't need
included
them.
with the idea?
Don't need them. Sorry.
Don't need them.
Nope. Don't need them.
Okay.
What do you
Well,
mean
then
by
how is everything moving around then if you
Don't
don't
need
have
to.
any mass?
That's a different topic. We're not talking about that. We're talking about measuring the diameter of the Earth.
Riggs? I don't understand the question entirely. Could you restate it, please?
No.
Okay.
No.
No.
I think I'm obviously wasting my time.
No, you're not. It was just in conversation. It's fine, man.
Dark matter and dark energy are speculative ideas about observations at the scale of galaxies that has come up just in the last couple decades, and they are speculative.
And without those speculations, you would have to concede the current understanding is incorrect. But nobody else.
The current understanding of
perhaps.
gravity, which is not related to the shape of the Earth. But okay, you want to talk about gravity now?
At no point did they lead with, you know what, this whole thing is wrong.
But
they never led with that.
No, because they were observing the shape of the Earth. You noticed that on a certain day that the sun was directly overhead in Cyrene, and he measured the shadow in Alexandria, and he knew how far apart they were. Math.
Didn't
Boom.
Michio Kaku say that we're wrong by a factor of some big number?
Not on the shape of the Earth.
No, I know, but what did he say? What was that in reference to? I mean, I saw it on Robbie Davidson's
Probably
documentary.
regarding the dark energy and the inferred expansion rate of the universe. But to the point being discussed, I mean, like all of the observations and reasoning and calculations about the shape of the Earth didn't have anything to do with gravity. But I mean, gravity is a cool topic too. It's just a different topic.
No, the topic is that at every point in history, okay, they knew what the Earth was and what the story was. You had to lead. You had to lead with a worldview and an understanding of the sky, and the the spirit and all these different kind of components. You had to lead with that. That's every point in history. And all they've done today is remove the spiritual aspect of it. They still think they know, though.
So
even when they are found out to be wrong.
What's
found out to be wrong? Have you seen Men in Black? Because Flat Earth is mentioned in Men in Black. When K is trying to convince J to join Men in Black, they're at the park bench in New York, and he says, 500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth is flat. 100 years ago, everybody knew whatever. And yesterday, you knew that we were alone in the universe. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow. It's a great line. Anyway, but he mentioned Flat Earth, everyone knew. So a lot of people, including people who wrote the movie, and people who watch it, I don't know if anyone questioned that, but a lot of people sort of assume that people thought the Earth was flat. That's not, it's not necessarily, that's debated. I don't think it's true. I don't think a lot of people did, but whatever. But in pop culture, if you ask people, did people of old, with an E, did people of old believe the Earth was flat? I bet you bottom dollar that a majority, over 50% would say yes, they did believe the Earth was flat in days of old.
Okay.
I mean,
it really doesn't go. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with my point, though.
Oh, okay.
It's just I'll just add that as an extra point then, rather than reply to yours. But it was actually replying because you did say that for ages people have known they've had the story straight.
Yeah.
I don't know how they.
Well, it just seemed like you were trying to emphasize like the flat part, but I'm trying to emphasize universal knowing. Like people have like they knew this, they knew that. I mean, they knew they lived on a turtle, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like if you went to your leader and he didn't have an answer for you, that people would cast doubt on that leader. So
Yeah,
for someone to come in here and say we've known this for 2,000 years, for X, Y reason, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not an argument. Is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like it would be casting doubt on this 2,000-year-old or 2,500-year-old system that all of our law and science. It would shake faith in that entire thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say if you watch congressional hearings, sometimes it's very hard to get the people that are being questioned. It's very hard to get them to admit that they didn't know something, and I think there's a reason for that. I think the reason is that they don't want that soundbite, and so a lot of people are coached when they go before congressional bodies to answer questions that they don't give sound bites, and that's what I think people are operating by. They're in charge of the principle that they don't really want to give people doubt by offering them sound bites like, "No, I have no idea what that means," or "I have no idea about this, no idea about." And I think it's only fair. I don't think that's unfair to say that people would do that. That's natural. I think natural behavior for people, anyone in charge, is to avoid that, giving the appearance that they don't know what they're talking about. So the question would be then: do they really not know? Did they really not, the Earth shape or whatever you want to, do they really not know? At what point did they know? Do they, in your opinion, really think the Earth is flat and they're hiding it, and they're using something, the whole system to cover it all up, or what is going on there? That'd be a question.
Well, they're just trying to come up with a sanitized version of cosmology. Like they really don't want anyone to. They don't want anyone to have any like real argument for any kind of design or creation. They want people to think that intelligence can just be sparked into existence at will, and that's not the case. That's the whole push for transhumanism and AI, and this is why you hear AI 50 times in like presentation these days. It's not because it actually is good for us. It's because there is a unified effort from these conspirators that are trying to move society into a direction which marginalizes its inhabitants, the inhabitants of this earth. So there's going to be 2 tiers of people. That's it.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow, Riggs. I think you broke up for a second. What are they trying to do as far as marginalizing people?
They're trying to create 2 tiers of people. No middleman. Like all the stuff that, all the work, all the labor, everything, anybody who is specialized, they want to reduce that to nothing. They want to have essentially idiots and the wealthy, and everything else be, robots. So you have this subservient class, which, I'm not sure exactly what they're going to use them for, to be honest, because once they make everything robotic, I'm not sure how many of us they're going to want around, to be honest. But
Oh, you think that's
That's where
the where it's going? They'll make everything made by robots, and we wouldn't need any more people.
well, that's their. I wouldn't say it's the end game, but that's one of the steps that they're taking.
You think so?
That's the big conglomerized push right now. It's not that AI actually benefits anybody. Like all this like world wrestling politics,
Mhm.
you know, it's just fake back and forth, you know, causing fear, tariffs, all this bullshit. This is all just to keep people distracted while they're taking over everything. I mean, Trump just said they were going to drop what, like $50 billion on some AI project, like the first day into his, you know, and I'm not even going to say that was it's probably worse than that. It's probably a lot worse than that. But that's their waves of like, you know, kind of telling us before they, you know, because it's part of the code. They have to tell you. You know, they don't have to tell you it's true or not, but they have to. It has to at least come out of their mouth.
Riggs,
They
so
want,
like, oh, sorry,
yeah.
go on. I was
No,
gonna
they
say like,
just want to automate everything.
I think most people agree with some version of the fact that political and economic and technological. Oh, sorry, did I cut out for a sec? Computer just. Anyway,
No,
I
actually,
think.
you're good.
Yo, sorry, mic check.
Yep, you're good.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think most people agree with some version of that political and economic and technological power has been conglomerated into the hands of a small elite, and that, you know, most people are marginalized and excluded from that, and highly influenced and brainwashed by the media, and just like yes to all of that. But it's quite a jump for me to think that that means that the shape of the Earth is not a sphere. I mean, I feel like what you're basically saying is you're starting from the premise that anything that is an official narrative should inherently, you know, be disbelieved.
Oh no, it's not. It's not inherently. I mean, I've followed this from the ground up. This is the plan. This is what they're doing. They've been planning to reduce nutrients from your mind for as long as time. I mean, okay, when you're like in jujitsu, you want to have the most efficient. I mean, you want to get them in arm bar, right? Like you want to wrap your leg here, wrap your leg there, and pull on the hand, the wrist, and you want to get that person to tap, right? Like they have been practicing every fucking method that you could ever do to get someone to tap, to submit. They've tried psychological, they've tried chemical, they've tried manipulation, they've tried like lying to them about whole paradigms. They've tried everything. Yeah, they've tried religions, they've tried products and marketing. And now what they're trying to do is they've come up with this model where they, to a very high degree, bullshit the fuck out of what the earth actually is and its spiritual nature. So because everything's so specialized and granular, no one can just accept it for being an immaculate creation that it is.
Well, I mean, plenty of people think the universe is an immaculate creation and don't think that the Earth is flat. So it's just the specificity of that last jump that I'm not following you on. And like, I'm with you in the whole point of how like institutions and powerful agents look to subdue and control and shepherd, you know, the general population.
I'm sorry, this wasn't my flat Earth argument. I don't know where you're getting that from.
No, but I'm saying I think because of how you mix it in with, you know, this kind of political outlook, you know, you've attached this question, you know, of the shape of the Earth, the nature of gravity, to kind of the broader stuff that you're saying politically, which I agree with. But like, I don't see in what way, even if the government was lying about the equation of gravity, that's like a relevant part of social control in most people's daily lives.
Okay.
Yeah, particularly because most people couldn't tell you what that is.
Yeah,
That is such a
most
huge
people are ignorant
disconnect and
scientifically.
straw man to like what the potential of, like, nobody understands how a microchip works. It absolutely
Right.
fucking affects their life. I'm surprised that you would even like form such a weak argument to my non-argument. Just weird.
Well, if you watch the debate between Professor Dave and Flat Earth Dave, Flat Earth Dave at the beginning of the debate tries to get some common ground with Professor Dave, who isn't at all interested in that attempt. And one of the questions he asks them is, do you think the media is propaganda? Professor Dave's reply to that was, yes, the media is largely propaganda.
Yeah.
So the question I would have is, are we supposed to be aware that we are being propagandized? Or we're meant to not be aware of it? Or do they have to tell us this? So why do they have to tell us? Who made that rule?
Do you want like to save time? I mean, here's the thing. Because the way the information is memory hold, and because that, there's not real books anymore, everything's digitized, PDF, websites, Facebook, groups, memes, everything has been deleted. I don't think you understand. Like, information has been removed from the pool of information.
Which information and by whom?
How much time do you have? I mean, we got Northern Rebellion here. He's on account 6. So,
what's that mean?
Well, what I'm saying is that if I wanted to have like a ground up answer for you about what to take seriously and what they're lying about and what they're not lying about and all that, I mean, that actually existed at one time. There were whole repositories of dense information about crisis actors and false events and just on and on and on, and chronological takes where maybe some websites are different now than they used to be, because the old ones were taken down, so they could afford to make new revisions so that anybody who looked into it in the future would never get to the real story back in the day. I'm saying that the internet has been deleted and rewritten so many times. I can't tell you exactly how I got to the position I'm at anymore. I would love to show you and walk you on the path, and I promise you, you would never trust any institution that is prominent ever again.
I mean,
absolutely, no doubt, no fucking doubt.
I can't tell you how many of the
sites,
how many sites that I used to visit that ended up with a seal, a U.S. seal on it. Yeah, this site has been confiscated. Information.
Oh yeah,
data leaks that would happen. You know what I mean? Shit would hit the hot sheets, bro. You were in the conspiracy circles. A data leak happened. Something that wasn't supposed to come out. Boom.
Well, and you need to be able to share stuff to people, right? And when I was under hot pursuit, dude, it didn't matter where I posted the link, where I copied and pasted it. It didn't matter. That host would be gone. The people I'm talking to would disappear. Everything we fucking gone. Context would be totally scatterbrained. If you have a file folder with 100 things and half of it's missing, you can't make sense of the other half.
I remember back in AOL days, bro, back in the 90s, conversation and entire chat rooms getting nuked.
Look, all I'm saying is that I would love to not have like everything be bullshit fact checked and people actually spend time looking into things, but also in a time where you could actually find the information where you could find the original sources, where you could find the things that would actually convince you instead of it me being trying to convince you. I don't like to try to convince people. It's a waste of my time. I've gone through the work that I've done to get where I'm at. But that time is that time is basically gone, is what I'm telling you. If you haven't figured out that something's fishy by now, I'm not sure I can convince you, because you're stuck with TikTok. You're stuck with fucking absolute, actual retards.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that, what they're saying is not true, but I'm saying that what you're stuck with is like half and half, probably more than half retards.
I don't trust institutions. I don't trust the interest and incentives of governments or corporate media or anything of the source, or academia. I mean, every institution has an agenda of maintaining its own power, its own wealth. But I'm not following how that connects to talking about shadows and the Polaris and the Northern Star, right, and like the astronomical observations of star trails and rotation of the Earth, or the equation of gravity. That was all I was saying, is that it does not follow for me.
Yeah, well, what you're doing is you're picking and choosing basically some kind of model, and that's it. Like, the model seems to be perfectly catered to the worldview of the conspirators, of literally the people that I spent the last over a decade looking into and discovering. Like, they are preferring this understanding. They are promoting and propagandizing this understanding. We have found them lying about laser tests. We have found them manipulating footage from all types of different craft, landings on the moon, fucking Mars. And the thing is, you're not willing to even approach the subject as if there's some sort of validity to it. And I honestly, at this point, I don't blame you. I don't blame you, because you're going backwards. If you start at flat Earth, just find a different community. I just don't know how to help you at that point. I actually don't. I'm not talking about you specifically, but I can clearly tell, through your thinking, your internal epistemology, you are a very smart person, and I've talked to you before. You're very logical, and some of the things that you say, they don't strike me as somebody who's trying to accept an alternative. Because in order to show true intelligence, you need to be able to engage with the concept that maybe there's multiple answers, right? And every time that I've spoken to you, you say something fucking retarded. I don't think, what was the thing you said about gravity, right? And I don't mean to slander you or put you down or anything, but this is the exact kind of shit that tells me that you're really not thinking about it. Okay? The fact that something things go down in your paradigm is legitimately a pseudo force. Okay? You've had to internally accept this, when in reality, everything operates with real forces, because reality is physical. In your paradigm, you have to accept essentially a non-physical interaction or a contraction of some sort of the physicality. You have to manipulate time.
That isn't what a pseudo
You have
force
to
is.
manipulate time. You have to accept that there's such a thing as time dilation.
Yeah.
Time.
If you want to talk about something concrete like that,
there's no such thing.
Yep.
It's
dilation
literally
is proven.
retarded.
That's what I'd love to. I'm happy to chat about that. But again, I just first of all, I have never claimed absolute truth on anything. The whole nature of scientific endeavor is you've got a best theory, and it gets replaced someday by a better theory that is more capable of supporting more of the evidence.
No, that's just
you know?
picking and choosing. What about what just actually is?
It's called
Nobody's time traveling. It's a Doppler effect, just like everything
no,
else.
it's not. It is a real effect, and it's demonstrated.
Look,
We're
all
jumping
I'm
through a lot of
saying is
things.
that when you come here and say something like, "Oh, well, we understand gravity, and it does this, that, whatever," look, what you've done is you've attributed many different phenomena to some kind of gravitational explanation. You can absolutely have some
Wait a
kind
minute,
of
you can
invisible
measure
force.
gravity.
Even that's fine. It doesn't
Sure.
matter what you call it. There's
Well,
a
fine. What do you want to
down
call it then?
something.
Want to
There's
call
a
it?
source.
Want to call it the
There's
Riggs
a source.
force? Or what?
You
Want
can
to call
call
it downity or
force
what?
if you want.
What do you want to
What
call it
you've
today?
done is you've attributed this thing to some kind of formal labeling of gravity under the paradigm of if gravity then globe. It's totally non sequitur.
Wait,
Totally separate.
I've not said that.
If gravity then circular large masses tend to clump themselves in circles. That is correct.
It's non sequitur, dude.
No, it's not non
There's a lot of
sequitur. It's
clumping.
demonstrated.
There's a lot of clumping with static and magnetic.
Incorrect.
And
Static. Nope. Incorrect. Because
yes, of course there are.
Magnetic things only work to things that are magnetic, like iron. Gravity works on things that are not magnetic. Static forces are extremely weak and would blow the Earth apart if it was just static. You could take static. You could take if the Earth was static. I could take a one of those guns and how you used to do the old vinyl records. You'd zap them and the dust fell off. I could do that to the Earth. It would fall apart. But no, it doesn't work that way. Sorry.
Yeah, you guys just look. All I can say is that it's clear that you're not really thinking outside the box.
Well, no. What do you mean you're
really
outside
clear.
the box?
And it's clear to everyone else in the room.
Outside the box, you can't think outside the box unless you have evidence to think outside the box. If you want to say make up shit,
if you're thinking about a flat Earth and you're applying basically globe paradigm to the flat Earth, you fucked up already.
Then fine. Where's this damn flat Earth evidence that I've been waiting for 5 years? Other than it looks flat and
if
water.
you didn't find it, then what are you doing here?
It's not there. It just amuses me. It amuses me. It amazes me that it's 19. Excuse me. It's not even that. It's 2025. I'm living in the past.
Yeah, I'm super amazed with that answer.
I mean, it was 19 something and still worked. Now it's like 2025, and people think the Earth is flat. That's fucking ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah, boomer alert. Sorry, I misspoke.
All right. Well, guess what?
That's a good one. Yeah.
If you haven't found anything here compelling, then I don't know what you're doing here.
I'm here trying to figure out why people like you think the Earth is flat without any freaking evidence.
Well, if you've been here this long, you failed this long, then why are you here? If you can't even come up with can you internalize the concept of something other than like applying globe understanding to a different paradigm? Can you imagine?
Hey, listen, you want to see what it would take me? I'll show you what it would take me. I would be a flat earther tomorrow if you had any evidence.
I don't care if you're a flat earther.
Well, no, see,
I don't care
if I could talk real quick. I think what he's trying to say is like there's no actual evidence or proof, and like there have been numerous flat earthers who've tried to prove it wrong and have been immediately proved wrong because the Earth is round. But while I have the floor, would you guys mind if I said a joke?
Do it.
All right, thank you. All right, so a chicken has a kid. That kid grows up and he goes to high school. He graduates and he moves to Wisconsin. A few years later, there's a family reunion. What's the first thing the father chicken says to the son chicken? It's been forever, son.
I had a bad feeling about that before you even started.
That's the best joke you guys have ever heard. 10 out of 10.
I wonder
as long as you're laughing. As long as I had a bad feeling.
Union. What's the first thing the father chicken says to the son chicken? It's been forever, son.
I had a bad feeling about that before you even started.
That's the best joke you guys have ever heard. 10 out of 10.
As long as you're laughing.
A bunch of things got thrown towards me. I want to just quickly respond to that. I've been pretty clear that I've never my epistemology, my whole view of this is that like I don't think we should claim final absolute truth on any paradigm. So like yeah, of course there could be alternative paradigms that come along. There is some non-zero probability to me that the Earth is flat. I would necessarily put it at a high probability, but I think that there is always that fundamental uncertainty of like, well, what if you've just misread all of your observations about reality? But what I was saying before is that like me looking over the available scientific evidence and thinking that, the textbook equations of gravity hold up well to our observations doesn't have any relevancy to my level of trust in government or media institutions, or the wealthy elites or anything like that. So these are all just kind of very separate issues for me. And it does feel like a lot of the flat earth argument is essentially based on whatever the dominant paradigm is must be serving someone's agenda. And, I don't think that just because there are dominant paradigms and some of them serve the agendas of those who are powerful, that means that it's impossible for us to learn things empirically about the world. I mean, just because the government says the sky is blue doesn't mean that the sky can't actually be blue. And I understand propagandizing the public on lots of things relevant to politics and economics and nationalism and global order and stuff like that. But faking. This is the thing that I'm curious about, is that I'm looking for someone to help connect the dots on me. What do you believe is being served, by lying about the shape of the earth? Let's say it was flat. What has been gained by covering that up that serves the agendas of the powerful? I'm definitely, I get there's a slight religious aspect to this all, but I still feel like there's some connective points there that I'm not quite seeing the connection on.
Yeah, dude. And you know what? I give you credit for putting that answer together. But at the same time, the fact that you were asking that question at this stage in your participation or / discovery, kind of surprises me.
Well, it's because I haven't really heard what felt like a very convincing answer on it. The answer seems to just be
I literally opened this discussion with that every institution, government, kingdom, religion, they had to have a story or understanding about the sky. Yes or no?
Yeah. So
those people would be they would be written into that responsibility. There would be the most intelligent people that were in charge of land and ownership and knowledge and story and history, right? All those things that keep the institution in position of authority. Okay. So this would include, if people in your kingdom didn't know where the land was, they'd make the maps. They would make the story about the sky. They'd tell you what, this, that, or whatever about the world, so that when people saw something or experienced something, they'd have a internal lens to reflect what they currently knew.
As far as I'm concerned, the powerful people exert power by killing their opponents. And
how do you have citizens? No. How do you have citizens first?
Let me get my thought out.
You're talking about taking over another. I'm talking about keeping.
Okay, but what I'm saying is
how do you keep people from escaping and paying taxes?
How do you do that? As far as I know, the power structures of the kings and whatever else don't involve discussions about the shape of the earth at all, do they?
They literally
are the discussions about the shape of the earth.
King James, wasn't it, made it such that only a certain type of map could be produced or published? I believe. I think it was a king. Yeah, I think it was King James. It was one of those early kings, maybe a Henry or something in there, that was sort of instituting that a certain map must be published, and anything else would be basically cast out illegal. If you were found to be publishing it, you would be in trouble.
I just don't... Go back a little bit. I have heard this one before of they'd lie about the shape of the earth if there's lands beyond Antarctica they don't want us to go to. That is an explanation. I'll grant that. I don't. There's a lot about that doesn't make sense to me. But how does lying about time dilation fit into that? Because there's a lot of topics in science that have been thrown together hastily into all of this.
Well, they had to do it. It was something that they didn't plan, something they had to do. Because they needed to control the limitations and speed of light. They want to make a paradigm that is as far away as possible. They want you to feel far removed from anything in this experience. They want to have total control about your experience.
But why is the shape of the Earth important in that regard?
Because it controls real estate.
Reducing it again.
It controls a piece of real estate in your mind as far as how you interpret reality and what goes beyond your limit of perception. All of this stuff is beyond your limit of perception. It's beyond your horizon. It's too far to reach in a place that's biologically you cannot go. And they are trying to interpret and impose certain sort of physiological expositions upon that observation that we can all make, but very few of us are said to be able to go. And I would go so far as to say that none of us can.
Okay, but
So they claim exclusivity in that. By doing so, they're claiming exclusivity.
it still feels very
in what
loose
way?
to me. Like this
What-
is
what-
like
wait,
a,
what-
sorry, go.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, it still feels kind of the core logic here is like, well, if they lie about one thing, they lie about another thing. You know, if Gulf Tonkin is fake, then why isn't the moon
No.
landing fake? Then why isn't
No,
time
you're
dilation
doing.
fake?
Fuck,
If I found
dude.
out tomorrow that time dilation was not real, I would not draw from that conclusion that I should go hike over Antarctica. Like, one would not follow from the other. That would not lead me to think that there's lands beyond Antarctica if I found out that time dilation wasn't real. So I just...
The connections, yeah, we're looking for the connections. That's what I'm interested in hearing about. How would a king, the kings would exert power by conquering and killing, not by telling people that the earth is a certain shape.
Yeah, they're going to conquer and kill their own people. Is that what keeps them around?
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, how do you
subjugate
how
their own people? Yeah.
Yeah, but how do you control people if they're in the know? They have to not be in the know to control them. If they were in the know, you wouldn't be controlling them. They would just know as well. So by the limited information, in order to control people, generally, if you're in the know and they're not in the know, that's one way to do it. We all know that when you're playing a game. Remember when you used to use that, X-nay, hello, hey, the whole X-nay, whatever, where you put like
Pig
the
Latin.
first letter. Yeah, Pig Latin, exactly. Yeah, so when you do that, it's like you're
codify.
tricking. Yeah, like you and your older brother are doing it to your younger brother, and the younger brother's like, "What are you saying?" And you and your older brother are laughing because you're in the know, and the little kid's not in the know. And so the two that are speaking in the Pig Latin thing, they know what each other is saying. The kid's all confused. So I'm just saying that's just a very basic, simple example. But I'm just saying in general, if you're going to control people, they would have, there needs to be a disparity of information so that you can control them. And so, yeah, whether there's hidden land, I mean, there's a huge number of reasons why they would do this, but it creates
Separation.
in a sense, yeah, a separate.
Right.
Yep, that's true too.
Let me ask you this.
Separation between classes and groups, and then knowledge sets, and then they can disseminate the knowledge they have through limiting other people from it, and then controlling us with a deception hides what's real even more by keeping you distracted in a deception. Not you, but whoever.
Yeah. Rixky, you mentioned something. You mentioned something about in space they keep it from us by pretending or claiming or whatever that it's biologically inaccessible. Can you explain what you meant by that?
No, that's not quite how I explained it.
Okay, I missed that. Sorry then. Okay.
What was I saying? No, they're
It was
making
nuanced.
claims. They're making claims of things in places that we cannot actually go and verify. And every single civilization,
Oh, I
as Riggs
see.
was pointing out, has done this before, right? They make. What else is there? I also wanted to point in, these are a couple of variables that I consider when I'm sort of thinking about this bigger picture. Is 200,000 years. You believe the evolutionary story, right? 200,000 years of human beings basically being of the same intelligence, and we only exploded in the last 100. There's a problem with that, as far as I'm concerned. You guys may not find it, but that's still whatever. Then the second one would be also that if you were to ignore, this is all sort of bound up in this notion of the growth of the universe, consciousness, intelligence, evolution, mankind, and then we get into this sort of idea of industrialization, banking. Well, the banking system came a little bit before the industrialization. But I think a lot of it's just globe is very heavily associated with this notion of the evolution of human civilization and society. And it was trying to, I don't know where you guys are in the story, but they've tried to delete previous civilizations quite obviously or misinterpret them like what the pyramids were for. We've got evidence of this manipulation constantly going on in order to reinforce the standard heliocentric narrative of evolution, essentially. It's like, this is the origins of where man came from, why we're here, and what's considered fair in the world, and how it's sort of set upon itself. So I'll end
evolution on a flat Earth. Yeah, I think all of these things are separate.
All I was trying to point out earlier is that just like turning the effect of gravity into like an equation doesn't give proof to globe. And I just thought that was a really weak argument. Sorry, I just had to.
No, but I didn't make that argument. I've never said that. I've said the opposite. That a model of gravity does not nail in what the shape of the Earth is. That these are separate questions. I mean, if you've got a certain model of gravity and the Earth is a sphere, you'd expect one type of gravitational field from it, and if the Earth is flat, you'd expect a different type.
So it does define it. So it is connected to the shape then. From that logic, then it is. Because the vector of the gravity field, as you were saying, is different on a different shaped Earth. On a globe or a flat, if you're talking about those two. You know, I mean, like the gravity, like the whole like plumb lines diverge on a globe, but like gravity lines diverge on a globe, you know, whereas on a planar surface, it would all just be up and down.
Yes, but I mean that there's still a result out of Newton's equations, out of Einstein's equations, take your pick. You could feed into those equations of planar Earth and get out the prediction from those equations of what the gravity of a planar Earth would be. So, like, yes, you could use gravity to try to see.
This is what I mean. Like, this is all about like mass and motion. You can make an equivalence just using motion and what you'd expect and like size or brightness. Dude, they don't know. They don't actually know the size or distance of these things. Okay, you do know that, right? Like, please tell me you at least understand
the planets, the stars.
They've changed the distance of even our own sun. You're trying to tell me that they can tell the difference of some kind of distance further than. Oh my gosh! How they've changed the sun? What, like 10 times? They just recently changed like Polaris. They added like another 30% or something. Like, it's in the quadrillions of light years. Come on, bro. Seriously, like, get real. So,
not quadrillions light years. I don't know what objects you're talking about.
2.5 quadrillion
miles. There. I don't know what objects we're talking
Probably
about
like
here.
3 now.
Well, if you guys want to go on that, but can I just say quickly to your point, like what you said? I mean, I actually agree that, I mean, part of the equations of gravity are pulled from like the electrostatic constant. We could get into all that, but I mean, some of the mathematics are actually connected to how quote unquote gravity works, like when you drop them. So yeah, well, that can be modeled on a planar surface. I just wanted to say I agreed with that. Like, maybe not all with this, you know, in the exact same way the globe does it, but anyways, I just wanted to say I agreed with the part when you said that.
Well, if that's what he was saying, yeah, I agree with that. But I heard that like, oh, we know. Like, I literally heard the opposite, and I'd be really surprised if you did say the opposite.
Well, no, I was saying
that would mean the rest of what you said didn't make sense. So I think maybe you doubled back and changed your.
No, what I was saying was that gravity is just like a separate topic, mostly from the shape of the Earth, that the observations we were debating about the shape of the Earth didn't have anything to do with gravity, and even determining kind of what the rate of gravity in the equation for gravity is on the Earth wouldn't necessarily tell you what the shape of the Earth was, you know, if you were just dropping things, at least from a short distance, because when you're on the surface of a sphere, you know, if you're very small compared to that sphere, it looks approximately planar. And whatever the gravity is from a spherical source, very close to the surface, would also be approximately planar, you know, straight down. So what I was saying was that even on a hypothetical flat Earth, it could be the case that Einstein's equations are what describe gravity straight down on a flat Earth, that describe the